Yeah, welcome back to our training on HTML, CSS, PHP, and MySQL. Now we are on CSS, and in the last video, I introduced you to Cascading Style Sheet, which is CSS. And in that video, I stopped on a CSS selectors. If I step through this video, I'll get to exactly where we stopped. Now you remember, I said we have three kinds of CSS selector: HTML selector, class selector, and ID selector. We did some examples. We experimented with HTML selector like a paragraph tag, how we can style a paragraph or all paragraphs in your web page. We also experimented with class selector and ID selector. Now, the point I want to continue with is the difference between class selector and ID selector. Now, let's go back to our web page. This is the page we had been building. And you see that this style tag, I put it after title tag and before the body, because like I told you, when you are writing CSS like this in your web page, we call it embedded style sheet. We are going to talk more about how you can put CSS in your website. So this is a method, call it embedded style sheet. It's always put in the head section of your page. Now, discover we have three CSS rules. The one start with # paragraph style. Then we declare the rules in between opening and closing brace. This symbol brace. Look at the cursor, this symbol here. That's the closing brace. This is the opening brace. Now, another rule is P. That is a HTML selector. This one is a ID selector starting with # sign. Then we have another rule which is body. It's also HTML, because any HTML selector will just be your HTML tag. Write the tag, then declare the rule in front of it. But look at another one here called cool. That is a class selector. And this is where we apply them. For example, the paragraph style. We use the paragraph style. This is a cool display of CSS. This statement wrap in between the opening and closing paragraph code with ID called paragraph style. That statement will get all these CSS property when your browser displays it. All this property: font size, 24, color, font weight, bold, font style, and so on. Then this one called ordinary P is HTML selector, just like normal HTML, paragraph, image, bold, all HTML tag. When you declare them like this, that is HTML selector in CSS. So it means all paragraphs on your web page will acquire this property of size 48, color, font weight, and so on and so forth. Now the question is, there is a paragraph bearing ID paragraph style. So, and there is a ordinary paragraph rule for CSS. So what will happen is this: when your browser displays it, the browser will look for all paragraph and it will apply this property to all your paragraphs. But any paragraph having a particular ID or class, anything with # is ID, anything with dots in the CSS is class. So if your browser encounters an HTML element like paragraph having a ID attribute or class attribute, if there is a similar property, look at this, font size here is 24, but the font size for all paragraph is 48. Your browser will obey this particular ID. it will obey the property assigned at this ID level, and it's going to override that of the general property assigned to all paragraph. So this paragraph here, under the body here, we acquired font 24 instead of 48. It's going to have this color instead of this other color, H33BBEE. It's going to acquire font width, but it will have additional property called font style italics. So it's going to make it italics, and all other paragraphs may not get that. But look at this one, getting cool class. So this particular one, its own color will be FF00, which is red color. And that is what happened exactly on our web page. So that is what happened. Now what we are saying here is the HTML selector will affect all HTML tags. But any HTML tag having a particular class or ID, the property, if it is the same property with that of the general one in the HTML, that of the class or ID will override it. Now, what is the difference between this ID and this class selector? For example, I may make this one to be #cool. If I make it #cool and I save, don't forget where I use cool. This is a display of selector. Where I use ID is this is a cool display of CSS. Now let's see the effect in the browser. Okay. You can see that the color of this is a display of selector is changing. Why is it changing? Because in it, I wrap it in between open and close a paragraph tag bearing the attribute class cool. And I've changed it to hash. So when you're using class, you have to use dot. That's why you don't see the difference. So if I change it to dot now, I make it dot cool, and I save, and I go back and I refresh. So you see that the red color is coming up, which is HF0000. Now, but if I make it hash, let me do it again. Please pardon me, I just have to explain this. And I have to change this one to ID. So if I must use hash, then this one becomes ID instead of class. And I save. And I go back to my browser and refresh. Nothing will happen. It will still be the same effect. Then what is the essence of using class or using ID? The difference is this. Now, this ID called cool, no other element can use it. For example, I cannot come to this div and say cool. It's not going to work because I have a paragraph using it already. So if I'm going to use cool again, then if I'm going to use maybe I have to change it to class or something else. I have to change the name to something else, or I change the ID to class. So ID selector cannot be reused. So let me undo that now. But class selector, if I change this one to dot cool, definitely this one has to change to class. So let me save that. So anywhere you use class, this class called cool, I can decide to come here. I can come here and change the class here to cool. I can change it to cool. What does that mean? It means class can be used by any element. So what will simply happen is this. The property assigned to class, which is the property assigned to class is color FF00, which is red. So this particular paragraph we acquire it. This particular paragraph we also acquire it. This is the list of programs we offer on our site. Let's see whether it's going to acquire it. So you can see this is the only one acquiring it, but if I refresh, so you see now that because I've assigned class cool to this particular paragraph too, so they both acquire. So the class selector can be acquired by any element. You can reuse it, not only by paragraph alone, I may come to this li and say class equals to cool. This li, which is a programming, and originally, if I scroll down, it doesn't have any property, it's just ordinary text. But since I've applied this class to it, so if I save and I refresh, you can see that the program there is turning red because I've used the class. So any element on your page having that class called cool will get this color called FF0000. I hope you get the point. So in summary, your your ID selector cannot be reused, but your class selector can be reused. So that is the difference between them. Like I said here, the ID selector is similar to class selector, but you use them to identify a particular element. It cannot be applied to other similar elements on the page, except the element to which it is assigned. That's just the difference between them. Now let's continue. Now I'm still on this selector. I'm taking time because this is the backbone of CSS. The example below illustrates 3 types of CSS. I've already done that. Look at this H1 there. It's having color red. No, they are using ordinary color here. It's not the standard practice. You need to use color code, but some browser will still accept that. Then .new font is another CSS rule, but you know that this is a class. Then this one is ID, new text box color. The property assigned there is color yellow, and they are put between open. There should not be / here. Sorry for that. So they are put between opening and closing tag. So the first one, H1, is the HTML selector. So we don't have the angle bracket. Please note that when you are declaring HTML selector in CSS, you don't write it like tag. Then with HTML selector, all the HTML tag on the page will be formatted in the style you have set. So that is that. Okay. The second one, having dots before it, that is a class selector. As you have it here, new font, that is a class selector. Then the third one, new text color but having hash, that is ID selector. I've explained that already. Okay, let's look at CSS property